Hello again. It was Friday the 13th last night. Now, I'm not superstitious, but I'll tell you what, scary things are happening. I mean, apart from the wind and the rain that's battering the UK at the moment, worst storms for, well, this year anyway. What I'm talking about is 3-year-olds beating each other up with iron bars. Hear about that little lad, Jay Jones, got beat up by another 3-year-old, locked in a car with a jack or something. Had to go to hospital and have stitches. Absolutely traumatised. 2 days in hospital. His mother didn't know whether he was going to live or die. Or so she says. Now they're in line for possibly £20,000 criminal injuries compensation. But what shocks me is that, you know, you've got 3-year-olds going around with iron bars. Or locked in cars, whichever. That's not the only thing. What about this Kunal Mohanty then? He's had his throat slashed, hasn't he? I mean, educated Indian over here in Scotland, and some guy, Chris Miller, with his knife, this lock knife, slits his throat just because of the colour of his skin. Well, this guy doesn't look like he spent too much time in education, and the chap that he killed, man, he was going to be a captain. I mean, it's another case of the worthy being undone by the unworthy. And the other thing that's upsetting me at the moment, this lovely mother, or described as a bubbly mum of 3, what's the name? Mary Griffiths. She was murdered, wasn't she? Some guy stalking her all the time. Apparently he got a fixation on her. She turned him down on Facebook. She reported it to the police, didn't she? But they didn't do anything about it, which, well, I mean, I don't want to criticise the police, but they obviously made a mistake here in Suffolk this time. And as a consequence, a lovely young mum of three girls has had her life taken by a nutter with a bolt gun of all things. I mean, that's not the scariest thing. Well, it's scary enough. There's lots more going on. But what about the Scottish elections? Well, Scottish elections, I say, it's another thing in Scotland, up in the Gorbals or North East Glasgow, something like that. That former Speaker of the House of Commons, what's his name, Michael Martin, he was had to resign last year because of the detail of what they was claiming and what they was getting, all these flat plasma screen TVs and things like this. Anyway, they've only bumped him up to the House of Lords, haven't they? Well, what do you expect? And now, Labour, they've managed to hold on to his seat with 33,000 people going out to vote, and most of them voting for Labour because it's a pretty safe seat. Well, it just makes you wonder what's the point, doesn't it? If they can mess everything up and still hold on to all of these things. Well, I'll tell you what actually makes me more annoyed. This week I had to renew, well, it was last week actually, and I was overdue. I had to renew my TV licence. And what I realised is, because I've got a computer now and it picks up TV, you've got to get a colour licence, haven't you? Well, that's 140 quid. That's more than 140 quid. And I wouldn't mind. But do you have any control over your TV licence? No. Most of it goes into the pockets of the top executives, isn't it? They had this in the newspaper. Another scary headline. Top BBC executives paid over 40 million quid or something like that. I mean, that's my money going into their pockets. And then you've got the chief executive of the BBC, I can't remember his name, parking his car and claiming 70p when he's over £800,000 a year he's getting. I mean, that's about 4 times as much as the Prime Minister. Well, I don't know. I think we should start a campaign to stop this TV licence business, because when you think about it, it's just a rip-off. It's a rip-off. And why hasn't it been done away with? Because the MPs and the Houses of Commons and Parliaments and things that have control over the BBC, they won't do away with it, will they? No, of course they won't. Because those people who were journalists before, who become MPs, go into the BBC again after they leave. I mean, what happened? I know that John Prescott, former deputy leader of the Labour Party, he wasn't a journalist, but he's one of those. What did he claim? £4,000 on MPs' expenses for food. That was £4,000 for food. Then he resigns as deputy leader when that bloke Blair left, and the next thing I know, he's gallivanting on the BBC who's paid him £40,000 to travel around the country to find out about people who eat too much or something or other. I mean, we need to get rid of this TV licence, that's all I can say, and pretty scary things are going on, and we need to stop all this nonsense. By the way, someone left a comment on my talk last week, said they thought I ought to go back to Africa. Africa? I'm not from Africa, I was born in this country. However, with all this stuff going on, I reckon that's not a bad idea. Bye for now.